Alright guys, we are back in the vehicle. Now we're going to erase all the trouble codes. Then we will initiate the regeneration process. So I'm going to bring up our scan tool. As you can see, we got a lot of trouble codes in the engine computer. Now we're going to erase all the trouble codes. So let's clear all the codes. Now, while the scan tool is erasing all the trouble codes, I want to check the ABS system to see why the ABS light remains on while the engine is running. Because I told the owner that since he drove all the way from Arlington, Virginia to bring his vehicle to us, I'm going to check the ABS system for him and I'm not going to charge him. So what I want to do is I want to go to ABS control unit. Actually, as you can see, the ABS control unit is not even over here. It's not even listed here. Okay, so there's no ABS on the list of all the control modules over here. So you see there's the engine computer, transmission, electronic gear selector, electronic stability program, so no ABS. Okay, so when you have a control unit that doesn't communicate with the scan tool, the problem usually ends up being a defective module or a module that's not being powered. I think I said that already earlier. So now what I want to do is I want to look at the wiring diagram. I want to see how this ABS control unit is wired. We're going to check the powers and grounds wires at the ABS control unit. So let's go to wiring diagrams. So we're going to go to anti-lock brakes. So we're going to click on that. So here is the ABS circuit. So over here is our ABS control unit. And right here, pin 1 is a ground supply wire. So the brown wire, pin 1 brown is a constant ground, and pin 4 is also a constant ground. And then pin 2 and 3 are power supply wires. Because since they're going up, the wiring schematic, I'm pretty sure they're both going to a fuse. Okay, so this red wire with a white tracer. So if we scroll down, we will see that these two wires go to these fuses over here. So fuse number 4, it's a 40 amp fuse, and this one is fuse 3, it's a 25 amp fuse. And these fuses are in fuse block 1, top of fuse relay box. Okay, so this one over here, these fuses are in the fuse box over here in the vehicle. Okay, so we're gonna check these fuses first. Maybe we have an open fuse. If we don't have an open fuse, we're gonna go to the ABS control unit. We're gonna check these two ground wires and these two power wires, and let's scroll down and see if there's any other ground wire or a power wire over here. So it looks like we have an ignition feed over here. So it looks like it's pin 28. So pin 28 is an ignition. So this one gets power when the key is turned on. So that's good to know. So as you can see, this is the ABS control unit. We are good to go. So basically we have 3 power wires on this ABS control unit and 2 ground wires. Okay, so let's check these 2 fuses first to see if the fuses are good. But if the fuses are good, then we're gonna go to the ABS control unit and check these wires. And if we have good power and good ground at the ABS control unit, then the problem is a defective ABS control unit. So now let's check the fuses. So now we're gonna test the fuses. So the fuses we're gonna test are up there. Okay, so my test light is connected to ground. So if I touch the fuse, the test light should light. So one side has power, the other side also has power. So I believe I'm testing the right fuse. So this here is fuse 1, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I mean, what's the weird thing is that this one is showing a 5 amp fuse. Okay, so there's power on both sides of this fuse. So this is fuse 3 and this is fuse 4. I mean, on the wiring diagram, it said that one was going to be a 40 amp fuse and the other one was going to be a 25 amp fuse. But over here, we have a 10 amp fuse and a 5 amp fuse. So, and we don't even have a fuse box layout over here on this, on the cover of the fuse box. I mean, I guess I can look it up, but you know what? I'm not going to do that. I mean, all these fuses are testing good. They're all good. There's power on both sides of these fuses. So since the ABS control unit is really easy to get to, and the cover, I mean the connector is really easy to get to, let's just go to the ABS control unit and do our powers and ground tests at the ABS control unit. So now let's do that. If there's power and ground there, then the problem will be a defective control unit. So let's go under the hood and do that. Alright guys, so here is our ABS control unit. I am going to disconnect the electrical connector of the ABS control unit. I'm going to remove its cover and then I will get access to the wires. I will back probe them and then I will bring you guys back up so we can do our powers and ground checks. So I will do that and then I'll bring you guys back up. So I did disconnect the electrical connector of the ABS control unit. I removed its cover, so here's the cover of it. So as you guys can see, now we have access to the ABS control unit wires. So now I am back probing the 2 ground supply wires. I'm back probing the brown wires. So these 2 wires over here supply ground to the ABS control unit, and these are the only 2 ground supply wires. So I'm going to show you these wires again on the wiring diagram, and then we're going to test to see if there's ground at these 2 brown wires. So here is our wiring diagram. So as you can see, pin 1 and pin 4 are brown wires and there are constant grounds. So now let's test them. We're gonna use our test light. So I have my test light connected to power over here. So if I touch ground, my test light should light. So let's touch there. As you can see, the test light is lit. So that's good. So now I'm gonna touch the first back probing tool right there. As you can see, the test light lights, so there's ground on that wire. So now let's touch the second one. Right there, there's ground. So our ground supply wires at the ABS control unit are good. So now we're gonna test our 2 power supply wires. So the 2 power supply wires at these are these 2 red wires. So red with a white tracer, these 2 over here in the middle. So I'm gonna back probe these 2 so we can check to see if there's power at these 2 wires. And these 2 wires are constant power supply wires. So if we look over here on the wiring diagram, so pin 2 and pin 3, red and white tracer, they are both constant power, okay, coming from the fuse box. And these wires actually should have power all the time because it says hot at all times, okay? So I'm gonna switch my back probing tool and then I'll bring you guys back up. Alright guys, so as you can see here, now I'm back probing the red wires with the white tracer, our power supply wires. So now we're gonna move our test light to ground. So test light is connected to ground. If I touch power, my test light should light. So let's see. So right there, I touch power, the test light lights. So that's good. Now the key is on inside the vehicle. I mean, it doesn't really matter because these wires should have power all the time. So we're gonna test the first one. Now I'm gonna touch this back probing tool. First one, test light lights. Let's test the second one. Bam. So test light doesn't light on the second wire. So the first one it lights. Second wire, it doesn't. So we're missing power on the other power supply wire. Okay, now let me make sure we're making good connection here. Let me push it in a little more. So we're making good connection. Right there, so there's no power there. And then there's no power on this one. Okay, since there's no power on this one, what I want to do is because we could have an open wire, an open power supply wire, or an open fuse, because that wire comes from a fuse. I want to check the other power supply wire, which is the ignition, and then after I check the other one, I'm going to bypass this one with a jumper wire. We're going to send straight power here to this back probing tool that doesn't have power. If we send power to this, if the ABS control unit is good, we should be able to communicate with it. But if we don't, then we will know that we have a ABS control unit problem and a wiring problem also. So I'm going to remove this back probing tool because we already checked this first wire, so we know it's good. So now I'm going to back probe the other wire, which is the black and red. Actually, let me show it to you on the wiring diagram first, and then I will back probe it. So the wiring diagram over here, we are now going to check the last power supply wire, which is this wire over here, this wire, so black and red. Okay, this is the ignition power supply wire. So with the key on, we should have power at pin 28. Okay, so I'm gonna back probe pin 28 and then I'll bring you guys back up. So now we're gonna test the third power supply wire. So I'm back probing this black wire with the red tracer. So this is the ignition feed. With the key on, this black wire with the red tracer should have power. Okay, so the key is on in the vehicle. My test light is still connected to ground. So if I touch this back probing tool, let's see what's going to happen. So I'm touching that, and as you can see, the test light lights. So we have power over here at this black wire with a red tracer. Okay, but we don't have power over here. Okay, so the first power supply wire doesn't have power. So I can remove this one. Now what I want to do is I want to bypass this wire. So I'm going to use, let me reconnect this. I mean, I already checked the back of the connector. We don't have a pin fitment issue. All the pins feel really good. Okay, so we don't have a pin that's spread out, so that's good. So I'm gonna keep my back probing tool connected to that wire that doesn't have power, because this wire over here is supposed to have power. So we're gonna stay connected there. I'm gonna reconnect the connector. Okay, so the connector is reconnected to the module. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to bypass this wire. Actually, before I do this, I'm going to let me just back probe both of them, okay, so we can test them both. So one has power but the other one doesn't. Okay, let's check them one more time. So this one here has power, but this one down here doesn't have power. So no power on the first one, but there's power on the other one. Okay, so let me show you the wire on the wiring diagram. So here's what's going on, guys. So we have power on pin 3, but we don't have power on pin 2. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bypass this wire by sending power straight to pin 2 to see if our ABS control unit will come alive. So I'm gonna get some jumper wires so we can do that. So I'm going to use this fused jumper wire. I want to use a fused jumper wire because in case there's a short on that wire, that way we don't burn any wires. Okay, so we're gonna connect to the one that doesn't have power. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm sending power straight to that pin. So now we're gonna use our test light to make sure that there's power at both wires. So test light when I touch the second one, I touch the first one, test light. So I'm gonna remove this. Now let's touch the second one, which doesn't have power, but we're sending power to it. Right there, there's power there. Now, we already checked the ignition feed, and you saw that there's power at the ignition feed. So right now, our ABS control unit has its 3 powers and its 2 grounds. So if the control unit is good, now we should be able to communicate with the ABS control unit. So the key inside the vehicle is still on. So now we're gonna scan this. Let's go to scanner. Let's back out. So let's do a full system scan. Alright, so the scan tool is done scanning the modules. Let's see. So we have the engine computer there. We have the transmission control unit, electronic gear selector, electronic stability program, airbag, instrument panel. So still no ABS. Okay, so now since we have powers and grounds at the ABS control unit, but we still can't communicate with it, guess what, guys? We have 2 problems here. We have a missing power and we also have a defective ABS control unit. Okay, that's what it comes down to, because by sending power over here, we should be able to communicate with this ABS control unit. If we can't talk to it, the problem is the module is bad and the wiring also needs to be checked. We have to find where the open is and then fix it. Okay, and once we fix the open, that should be good. So it needs a module, and there's also an open in that one power supply wire. So I'm gonna disconnect this. I'm gonna reinstall the cover. I told the customer that I was gonna check it out for him, which I did. We don't have a pin fitment issue. So basically on these 2 power supply wires, we have power on this one, but the other one over here is missing power. Okay, and when we send power to it, we still can't communicate with the ABS control module. So the module is bad, and the module is needing, it's missing 1 power. Okay, I will let the customer know, and then I will see what he decides. So if he wants us to fix it, we're gonna have to get a new module, and this module has to be programmed after you install it. So we're gonna get a new module, install it, program it, and then we're gonna follow the wire and see where the open is, and we're gonna fix the open, and this should be good to go. So now let's drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration process. Alright, so we are back in the vehicle, the key is on. So now we're gonna erase the codes out of all the modules, and then we will do the regeneration process. So let's clear the codes. So this is gonna clear all the codes on all the modules. So let's give the scan tool a couple seconds here, and then we will drive the vehicle outside and do the regen. Alright, so the scan tool is done erasing the trouble codes from all the modules. So that's good. Let's do a code scan and see what happens. So right there, as you can see right now, we only have 1 trouble code in the engine computer about the DPF. So the other codes are gone. The exhaust temperature sensor code is no longer there. So we're good. And right there, as you can see, guys, we don't have the ABS control unit on this list. Okay, so as we saw, the ABS control unit is not communicating because it's not receiving power, and the module is bad because we send power to the 1 wire that was missing power, and our ABS control unit would still not communicate. Okay, so that's good. With this only code in the engine computer, we should be able to do the regen. So let's go into the engine computer. So we're gonna go to functional test, special functions. We're gonna do the forced DPF regeneration. But before we do that, I'm gonna start the vehicle and drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration outside. So let's start the vehicle. So right there, as you can see, the engine is running and the check engine light went off, the ABS light is off, the brake light is off, but we know that the ABS light, the ABS control unit is not communicating. So it's just a matter of time. The ABS light and the brake light will come back on. So I'm not really concerned about that. We know that the module is bad, although it's not receiving power on one wire, but the module is defective. So now let's drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration. And then we will clean that DPF and we should be good to go. And then if the customer, the customer is gonna have to bring this vehicle back so I can figure out where the open is in the wire, in the power supply wire of the ABS control unit. After we fix that open, we're gonna get the new ABS control unit and that should be good. All right. So I'm gonna stop over here so we can do the regeneration process. Now we're gonna do the regeneration process. So let's click on forced DPF regeneration. So let's click on continue. So it says this may take 15 minutes. Oops, I'm sorry for the glare, guys. So let's click OK. And the engine RPM is going to increase when the regeneration starts. So right there, I hope you can hear, I'm not stepping on the gas pedal, but the engine RPM is high. Okay, so the engine RPM is around 2000 RPMs, so that's good. Now we're gonna leave the scan tool here, we're gonna let it do its own thing, and then when the regeneration process finishes, we're gonna test drive the vehicle to see how it drives, because this vehicle was losing power tremendously and it had a bunch of lights on the dash. Okay, so we're gonna let the scan tool finish the regeneration and then I'll bring you guys back up. All right, so the regeneration is taking place. Right there, as you can see, we have a lot of smoke coming out of the tailpipe. So this is basically all the soot burning out of the DPF. Man, this thing stinks. You see all that smoke coming out? So that's soot burning from the DPF. Alright guys, so the regeneration process is completed. So now we're gonna get back in the vehicle and take this for a test drive. So the regeneration process is done, so we're gonna click continue. So we're good to go. Alright, so as you can see now the check engine light is still off. Okay, so let's test drive it and see how it drives. So this vehicle was losing power tremendously. So after replacing the exhaust temperature sensor and doing the regeneration, let's see how it drives. So right there, as you can see, right off the bat, before I even drove for not even 5 minutes, right there, the ABS light and the electronic stability program light came on, and the brake light came on also. So this is because of the bad ABS control unit. Okay, so let's keep driving. At least the check engine light is still off, so we're good. Right now this vehicle has a lot of power. It's like flying right now. As you can see, I'm doing about 75 miles an hour. So this vehicle came to us because it was losing power. So right now, this vehicle has a lot of power. So this is awesome. This is fixed. It's like flying. Wow. This vehicle has a lot of power now. So this is fixed. But as you can see, we still have the ABS light on the dash and the brake light on. So the ABS and the brake light on, and the ESP light came on as I was driving. So this came on because the ABS control unit is defective. So I'm gonna tell the customer to bring the vehicle back so that we can get a new ABS control unit and install it. And then I will find out why that other power supply wire is not receiving power. And after we fix that, all these lights over here should go, besides the TPMS light. Okay, so the vehicle drives well. It has a lot of power now. Actually, let me increase the speed again. So as you can see, we're doing about 70 miles an hour. Okay, so I don't want to go too fast on this road. So that's good, guys. I'm gonna keep driving. I'm gonna turn around and drive back to the shop. And when I get to the shop, I will bring you guys back up so we can wrap up this video. Okay, so we fixed some problems. It still have a couple problems, but the power concern issue is fixed. So I'll bring you guys back up when I get to the shop. Alright guys, so we are back here at the shop. As you guys can see, the engine is still running, and the check engine light remained off, but the ABS light and the brake light is on, the traction control light is on, and the ESP light is on. Okay, so those lights are on because of the bad control module. The ABS control module is bad. Now I'm going to turn off the engine so we can wrap up this video. So the power concern is fixed. The vehicle is no longer losing power. It runs good. The check engine light didn't come back on. I drove this vehicle for over 30 minutes. So this is good, guys. So now I'm gonna turn off the engine so we can wrap up this video. Alright guys, so I'm gonna leave it right over here. This is fixed. We fixed some issues on this van. I know it still has a couple issues. The ABS light is still on, but the customer just wanted me to fix the low power concern first. So the vehicle is no longer losing power. We replaced the glow plugs. We replaced the exhaust temperature sensor. We did the regeneration. We checked the ABS. So he's gonna bring it back when he can, so we can replace the ABS control module, and I'm gonna fix the power supply wire. So I'm gonna leave it right over here, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why, so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.